19. Swear to God, I'm taking over 19. Hey, back, hit a quarter million. When it's here, pretty chilly. I've been trying to find me really wow. Silly, yo, I be gone like Cheerio. Really though, swear we finna get the goal. You the goat, but the most been getting up. Standing still, yeah, I'm getting way too cold. Like it's uno, dos, I go single on these hoes. Doesn't songs, doesn't shows. Guess that's just one way to grow.
Hello, welcome to Dynasty Degens Rookie Profiler Series. If you're new to us, if you're listening, or just watching right now, this is a series where we go over all the top prospects, rookie prospects, guys that you probably know about but haven't heard much about or don't know anything about. Today, it's not such the case that you haven't heard about him because he's probably been talked about quite a bit in space. He's been all over, probably one of the biggest risers. Before we get to the prospect we're talking about, I'm going to introduce my guest today. Somebody that has been super supportive with Dynasty Degens. He's been, a good friend of mine for a little bit now. Unfortunately, haven't been on a pod with him in a while, which we were talking about backstage. But I'm grateful to be joined by Mr. Jeff Bell today at Football Guys. Jeff, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. I know we kind of moved around to be able to make this work, and I do appreciate your flexibility there. But anytime that we can get down and talk, I'm always down for that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's always been, I think the last 3 pods we had scheduled, we had to reschedule or cancel in general. It's just like the way that it worked. I think my kid was sick, and then you had something going on, and then I had something going on, and then we were supposed to do this last week, and then I'm fine with just getting it done with you, man. And I'm happy to be joined by you today. But I was talking about our riser, somebody that you chose, somebody that I'm really excited to be talking about today is we're talking Kyle Williams. So Kyle Williams, we're going to be going through his whole profile. He's a senior out of Washington State, coming in at 5'11", 190 pounds. He's a COVID year guy. So if you go through his stats, he steadily rose up. So 2022 was his second year. I think 2020 he was a freshman. So he did a 5 years total, if I'm not wrong. No, it was 4 years, but 2020 was a shortened year for him. So he had the freshman year that got cut short. And then we saw 541 yards in 2022. 2023, he rose up to 843. And then we saw him boom. So that transfer over to Washington State really helped him out. Hanging out with Cam Ward was definitely a boost to him as well. But we saw him just kind of go full force. And really, if you were in on him earlier, before that transfer, like you just, you saw that it was going to be a nice fit for him. And, with combine scores itself, we saw a 440, it just shows that speed, that burst score. He is somebody that is very explosive. So when I watch his tape, I see the way that he releases off the line. It's just like, he's gone. You know what I mean? He's got a good first step. He's got that quickness. He does show a lot of, I guess he's just like he is, I don't know, like when he comes off the line and then he breaks, he's sharp most of the time. I think I like his breaks a lot. He's got an understanding of the game as far as like he just knows where to be, he knows how to play it, he knows where to go. And I think that's a understated aspect of somebody coming in as a prospect. Like he just understands how a football field and a defense is lined up, and he knows exactly where to go at all times. Jeff, what is something that pops on his tape when you watch it immediately, like that you were like, okay, if somebody was like, okay, Kyle Williams to you, how would you explain who he is in like a couple sentences?
So the thing that always stands out to me is I remember during the Senior Bowl, Jalen Royals had so much hype in the fantasy community at the Senior Bowl. And then there was a side-by-side video that somebody had a tweet of a release from Kyle Williams and Jalen Royals. And it was basically Jalen Royals, a little bit of like shuffling the feet, trying to beat the defender. And Kyle Williams is like 1-2 step gone and just completely cut up the defender wide open. And I think that really stands out. And really, that's really when you watch him. I think you did a fantastic job of introducing him, of breaking him down there. It's the sharpness, it's the suddenness, and the lack of wasted movement. And I think those are the biggest things that play with him and remember watching him during the Holiday Bowl and being like, this kid's unbelievable. And then I was just kind of surprised that stepping into where consensus kind of stood on him. I understand he's an older prospect. Maybe that plays into it. He's not the most physically imposing type receiver, kind of falls under the radar a little bit there. But I think you talk about him being a riser. For me, he was a guy that I just loved from the beginning. And I've kind of been banging that drum here for a while. Every opportunity that I get, if you watch the Football Guys Dynasty show, it's my catchphrase at this point is Kyle Williams is a dude. And I think a certified dude is the way that I view him.
Yeah. No wasted movement is definitely, something that I appreciate from you see it now. You saw it in the Senior Bowl week, and they're just like TikTok moves and all these moves off the line that you're like, okay, the quarterback sacked. Okay, this guy is not even off the line yet, and we're talking about 7 seconds going by. So it's the nuance of that game that is overlooked, I think. Like people aren't really okay, there's no wasted movement, but like people are looking for that flash now. They're looking for like the 3-step off the line type moves and stuff, like the cross routes and everything that requires a couple steps off. But it's like in the NFL, that's not going to fly. If you think you're going to have that time to come off the line and really just juke your guy, we see it all the time with rookies coming in. He has a good yak ability too. So he's really good after the catch, especially in vertical routes. Like I'm not going to say he's going to overpower you, but he is a physical wide receiver. If you're looking at a rookie board, you have him as a top 10 wide receiver. Do you have him as a top 20 prospect as a rookie right now?
This is the benefit of doing this live, but let me look up my rankings right now. I don't have them at the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Sorry, so I should have prepped this up a little bit better.
No, I'm deep in the mock draft world of doing that right now, and then I kind of put the fantasy hat on like once we get past that. So I'm trying to move as fast as I can because I do know that I have rookie ranks available for the Football Guys Rookie Guide. Make sure to check out the Football Guys Rookie Guide.
It's not a bad time to plug the Rookie Guide over there. If you aren't over there, we had Kluge on last week. We plugged it a little bit, but I've had the Football Guys on here and there, and it's a great resource. And if you're not in that, and you're talking about the draft starting tomorrow, which is I'm prepped. I'm ready to go, man. I'm going live tomorrow, and I'm gonna be jumping with this quite a.
He's 28 for me overall in my latest published rankings, and those are going to be updated after we get the draft. But I think that's one of the other things that I think he's going to go day 2. Everything that I've heard, every indication seems to be that he's going to be a day 2 wide receiver. So I've got a 28 early in the 3rd round. I just don't see him even getting drafted in places or in mock drafts that I see in analyst drafts that I've done. He just doesn't even get drafted sometimes. And so that's where you're just grabbing tremendous value. I think to get a guy that either late in the 4th round or undrafted, that is a day 2 wide receiver, you take that all day.
Yeah. We talk about sleeper kind of fumbling the prospects a little bit, but Williams in general has risen quite a bit, like in fantasy and also in the real NFL value itself. But he wasn't added to sleeper until about 3 weeks ago. So he still has the ADP of a very, very low 4th round, 5th round, if you go that deep. So he's free at this point. And I don't think that's going to change. There would have to be a lot of mock drafts and actual NFL drafts going down before that ADP really shifts up a little bit. But give me some more things that you really like about his game if we haven't touched on everything right now. So it's like, we see that he's explosive. We see that he's coming off the line fast, no wasted movement. He's got that is a yak monster. Well, not I would say monster, but he's got that yak ability for sure. Is there anything that we're missing as far as translatable talents in the NFL?
I think the biggest thing, obviously, he's not a big X receiver, but that being said, I think when you look at his game, he's just a versatile receiver that can kind of fill in the cracks basically and fit into any receiver rotation. And I think that, to me, that's what stands out the most about him, is that so often, I know when I'm going through all the rookies for the class, for the rookie guide, you get players that it's like, okay, he can be a big bodied X receiver. That's pretty much it. Or you get, he's going to be a slot, and you got like your Xavier Restrepo. He could be a slot maybe, but he's not beating people outside. Williams is the type that he can do a little bit of everything. And I think that when you have players like that, one, that's maybe the reason why he's going to be a day 2 pick, but two, when you have that ability, it gets you on the field, it keeps you on the field. And you talk about the quick separation, you talk about the ability to create after the catch. To me, that screams volume. And that is what these NFL passing attacks are built around, these players that can quickly separate, that can create after the catch, that can kind of, he's probably not going to be a wide receiver 1, even at his highest outcome within an offense, but wide receiver 1 is kind of a fantasy football term. But I think he can definitely be that supporting receiver that does end up getting 8 to 10 targets per game, just from his presence and his ability to create.
Yeah. And, this narrative that I've been having fun with, I think that Jagger dropped a short on this today or yesterday. At times, I don't even know, time is just mushing together at this point. This whole week's been a little wild, but so the idea that, Cam Ward gets taken by the Titans and does a Stroud situation where he says, I want my guy from college. I want this guy. Obviously that he didn't get to play with Tank, but he had a soft spot for him. You think there's an actual possibility that he might get taken? I mean, the Titans are looking early second, like we're maybe early third. Where would you?
They don't have their third.
They don't have their third
for L'Jarius Sneed, so they don't have that pick. But again, they're leading off the 4th, and so maybe that isn't day 2 technically. But I mean, we saw it with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You go right away in the 4th, and sitting with that 3rd Titans pick. I mean, I think that that's in play, and that may arguably might be the floor for him.
Yeah. And before we get into our landing spots and scheme fits and all that good stuff, do you see anything on his game that any red flags, anything that people that aren't watching tape or too familiar with his game would kind of deter you away from taking him, as far as, jumping up in the second to grab this guy? Like if you can wait, but you're really excited to grab him in a rookie draft, you might reach on him. Is there any reason why you wouldn't do that?
I think talking about his potential outcome as being a number 1 receiver within an offense and questioning if that's in play would probably be that red flag. I mean, we know he's a 5th-year player, so that some people might flag that as especially if you're more analytically inclined and you kind of want to lean for these guys that are early declare, those types of things. Didn't really have a monster breakout until his 5th year. I mean, that's something that could factor into it as well. But I mean, when he showed up, he definitely showed up strong.
Yeah. I think that's probably, especially the analytic guys, if you're not watching the tape and you're just plugging the numbers in, the breakout age is going to get you a little bit. I mean, everything is so wacky now. When we're breaking down prospects and we have to account for COVID years where these guys, this is probably the last class that's really been affected by it. But yeah, the 5 years in college isn't the huge red flag that it used to be. I don't really, the age and everything, like we have to take into account that these kids didn't have a traditional college experience, like you went, and even their sophomore years were kind of wonky because it was still mask on and social distancing, and you're probably not having normal practices yet. And the field isn't really, you don't have the people coming, and it doesn't have the same feel. So it's like, these guys were affected 2 years in college, so it's hard to assess, and that used to be a bigger part of my process. So, and your process, I don't think we've ever broken it down a little bit, but is that something that is a big part of your process? Like, is there a certain aspect of the way you evaluate talent that is different, or you hold more weight to, or that's just kind of like a background noise to you as far as breakout age and all that stuff?
That's I'm definitely heavily tape inclined. when I go through prospects, and I try very hard of basically, like, I'll block out the world for a couple of weeks and I will just binge watch everybody in the class and kind of stack them up, and then start to break down within tiers, kind of create groupings for all my rankings, for any rankings that I do, whether it's weekly rankings or rookie rankings. I'm big on grouping things together and kind of breaking things down in that way. So kind of that initial cut and kind of separate players out that way. Then once you kind of dealing with like this top bucket here, where do players end up in that? And so leaning towards the tape, that's definitely where I land. And I mean, I'll look at the numbers. Certainly I want to see a player that's put up numbers for sure, but really when it comes through the college scouting, that's not a huge part of my process, just because I think a big part of my process has been watching football for 30 years, basically at this point, like religiously, and in kind of the type of thing that when you see a guy that looks like an NFL guy, and you see a guy that doesn't look like an NFL guy, and so you start to kind of break off in those directions, paying attention to people smarter than me, paying attention to people that are plugged in. Daniel Jeremiah is always a go-to, Bucky Brooks, I love those guys, but kind of picking up where the draft wins are leaning. I very much, during this part of the year, lean a lot harder into what the draft Twitter, the draft universe is saying on players versus where their fantasy value might lie of what's going on in mock drafts right now. And by doing that, I think it naturally step into just differences in opinion between the two. And I'm always going to defer to the draft side because that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's Kyle Williams pops as that right now. I think Mason Taylor is a player that pops as that right now. Just big differences in where I'm seeing their draft valuations relative to where I'm seeing their fantasy valuations.
Yeah. And you can kind of pick up these prospects of years past, like even 2 years ago with Sam Laporta. We saw him go early in the NFL draft and nobody shifted and nobody really just like changed their way of drafting. And it was incredible value. And, you know, like he's another guy, much like Mason Taylor, that was being mocked into the 4th round, the 5th round, whatever it was. And it's, you know, I always say that Mason Taylor is that huge value that you're going to be waiting on if you are doing rookie drafts immediately after, because right now it's looking like 2nd round for Mason Taylor. I mean, if that's true to what we're hearing right now, and he is going in the 3rd or 4th round of your rookie drafts, it's like you could be getting the tight end too in that late of a pick. And not to veer off of our guy Kyle or anything, but you got to be plugged in, and that's exactly how you do it. It's a trickle down effect. You know, I think I looked at you for a lot of content when I was first coming into the space, and you're going from Bucky to, it's just nice, man. And I respect your process. I respect what you do in the space. Before we get into, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say real quick on that point, Ladd McConkey last year was a guy that you had to watch the tape. You had to watch him at Georgia, because like if you looked at the numbers, and I saw it over and over again where people were just called him a slot because he's a wide receiver basically, and you watch him play and it's like, this guy is carving up guys in the SEC deep downfield, and it's not off of like fake pretend plays that they schemed him open. Like, this guy is got something. And then it really wasn't until he landed with the Chargers in that wide open wide receiver room with the target tree with Justin Herbert that he started to pick up steam in the fantasy space. And even then there was a lot of pushback on the Jim Harbaugh offense with Justin Herbert, and is there going to be even volume in this offense, and those types of arguments. And so, I mean, that stands out as a pinnacle example of this player that you kind of look at him and you think, well, wide receiver, he's going to be a slot, he's lower upside, I don't know about that. And whereas if you were watching the tape, you saw him like, this is a special player.
Yeah, and I think that was an important part of being on Twitter, and it can be a catch-22 where you are maybe not as plugged in and you're out there. You can see these guys being talked about. You can see certain accounts that are really pumping these guys and saying Lad McConkey is a value, Lad McConkey is a value, and sometimes you have to really take into consideration that that's probably a true fact, and you can shift through the nonsense and really just take in and go do your own process. But yeah, people are banging the table for Lad McConkey. Speaking of Lad, I do have a rookie in this class that kind of has the same movement. Is, I wouldn't say like super close, but I see some similarities in their game. Do you have Kyle Williams or Jalen Noel higher in your process?
I have Jalen Noel higher. Again, I think he's a player that consistently he's picked up more steam. I think that he's going to be, I guess the way I view him right now, Jalen Noel is going to go second in the draft in the second round, and Kyle Williams going in the third round, probably when I break it down. But I think that there's a guy that I'm really high on that I think is under the radar right now. It's Ty Felton from Maryland. I think is another guy that just you watch him play, you watch the speed and the way it translates, and like that's a different, that guy moves different than other guys. And I think that you talk about process, that's one of the things that I feel like I'm pretty fortunate in, that I've watched a lot of football and you can just see when players move different than other players.
Yeah. And it's a fluidity that it's hard to talk about to somebody that doesn't watch a lot of tape, because it's little nuances, it's little things that they do with their hips, or they'll open up or they'll just close out fast. And you could say that to somebody, but until you actually see it, executed properly, it's not going to do you any justice, and that's why I always say you got to watch a little bit of tape and find somebody that at least really watches tape to trust their process, because I think that was something that I went into quite a bit with Jalen Noel. Is you're not going to get everything until you actually watch him play a few different games. And and Kyle Williams is the same way, and that's a guy that fits the mold of, you don't really know what he has until he was in a better situation. And we're not saying that he bumped up dramatically because he still was producing, but the addition of Kyle to that offense, and it helped Cam Ward and him at the same time. I think they both boost their stock quite a bit this past year. But before we get into our favorite scheme fits, landing spots, we're going to kick it over to Fast Draft. So Fast Draft is something that I've been pumping a little bit. You can use our promo code DGEN and you get a deposit match on there. If you go in, you can draft rookies. So their Origin Drafts is doing a special operation on draft day. So if you go in there, log into Fast Draft, go into Origins Madness and put in our promo code, and then you just get to draft rookies while they are being drafted in the NFL. And it's a pretty cool thing to do. So we'll kick it over to them and then we'll come right back.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies, and use your favorite player profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Yes, that is promo code DGEN, DEGEN. But all right, so I said we're talking favorite landing spots, and I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit. We said that coming back to Cam Ward would be really spicy. I think it would be fun. Is there any really good landing spots, scheme fits, coaches? We do have him as a stretch wide receiver too. Like, I think that's like his good proper fit in the NFL. I wouldn't think that he would be a massive success as the target one in an offense, but I think if he was a complementary piece, somebody that could open up an offense a little bit and kind of work his way in, as opposed to having all the pressure of being that offensive guy right off the bat. Who would you want him to him, Kyle Williams, that is, want him landing in the NFL, where he would probably have immediate value, but also develop into a much better wide receiver than he is right now.
I think the Rams would be an interesting landing spot. When you look at him playing with Devontae Adams, with Puka Nacua, some of the things that they're maybe slotted to have Tutu Atwell do in that offense, where he can maybe start out as the vertical threat in there, but the way that they can scheme up the ability to create after the catch. Obviously, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are two of the best receivers in the league at doing that. We know that Devontae Adams is certainly not a long-term target there, but I think kind of being able to ease into that offense as the wide receiver 3, get some big shot plays, kind of playing off of those other players, and then develop and become that really maybe taking over long-term the number 2 opposite Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think there's always the go-to spots, like I think he would really fit well with the CD Lamb in Dallas. I think that would be a great spot. I think obviously there's a lot of needy teams. I know that they're just not polluted. I shouldn't use that word, but Green Bay has a lot of guys that do almost the same thing. And I can skip right over this and go right into, I see a lot of Jaden Reed. I don't know if you see this at all, but if you look at Jaden Reed tape, I see a lot of Jaden Reed and Kyle Williams. I see a lot of Jaden Reed in his game. I think they would complement each other well. I think they would actually help out if you saw them with Green Bay, and they wouldn't have to reach on wide receiver talent, but I think he would absolutely leapfrog, Romeo Doubs and become the wide receiver 2 on that team immediately. I think that it wouldn't take too much time. Dontavian Wicks back there probably would take a back seat. He's not as reliable as he could be. And I think, with Kyle Williams being in that position, he could put on a little weight. He could boost up his frame a little bit and just be that go-to stretch guy for Jordan Love, who I think is desperate for anybody to be able to, go on the outside and actually catch a ball that he throws. Anybody else kind of like off the rip, and we're, like the Patriots, Buffalo Bills. I know you're a Bills guy. Would you think that he would fit in that offense at all?
Yeah, I definitely think he would fit in that offense. Again, the Bills have, Keon Coleman, they kind of broke him in as the deep threat last year. Bringing in Josh Palmer also kind of plays into that. Obviously, Khalil Shakir is more of that classic slot. So that's where you talk about Williams being able to fit in to openings, like kind of having Shakir as that slot, having Williams kind of as that Z receiver, and then having those X's, the big X's with Josh Palmer, with Keon Coleman. I think that might be a fit there. I think an interesting one would be the Jaguars, kind of when you look at kind of, you think like starting out maybe in that Jalen McMillan role in Liam Cohen's offense that we saw and kind of blossom in towards the second half of last year, and maybe even growing into where Chris Godwin saw a lot of that usage, keeping Brian Thomas as obviously Brian Thomas can do everything on the field. So you've got that to play off of a little bit. And I think that might be an interesting one. It's again, you're talking about a player that I think just it has that versatility to be able to fit in a lot of different schemes. I think where you wouldn't really want him, maybe like the Jets might not be the best type of scheme there, where if you're going to be a little bit more run heavy, you're going to want your wide receivers to participate in the blocking game a little bit more. You're not going to run a lot of 3 receiver sets or those types of things. That's kind of where I would have pause on him.
Yeah, I think I need him to land on a team where they can use like a heavy slot, have heavy slot usage with him, just because of his shiftiness and the way that he releases off the line. I think the slot is where his money making early on in career. I think that's where he's gonna get the money. I think that's really where we're gonna see the value for him. And I think he's going to make a name for himself in the NFL. And then also for fantasy, I think he would absolutely produce almost immediately if they found the perfect situation where he was just like at least like 60% slot usage, 70% slot usage, and they were just running them out. You know, he could easily have a sneaky wide receiver 2 first year. And I think if he lands on a team where they're trying to use him on the outside, and I like the Jags. The Jags have to take somebody, because Brian Thomas Jr. can do it all, but who is their guy? Their second guy is Gabe Davis, or
Gabe Davis. They added Diami Brown. They have Parker Washington. So yes, they need to take multiple somebodies the way they're currently constructed. There's recent rumors that, and actually it was early rumors too, that Tet McMillan might be that guy, and you kind of pair Tet McMillan with Brian Thomas. I mean, that's pretty nasty. I think long term the potential would be there, but I think that they probably line up as it's kind of almost all of those guys are like wide receiver 3 types, or just kind of supporting players, or you be able to create a big play with Diami Brown occasionally, or Gabe Davis, a better blocker that maybe could get loose downfield. I mean, we did see with Mac Jones, Parker Washington get some volume games towards the end of last season, but again, they were kind of playing out the string there. But that's a team that I think needs to add probably 2 bodies at wide receiver in this draft.
Yeah, I like that. I think they probably need a tight end too. I think that there's a lot of needs for. I mean, I don't know. Trevor Lawrence is maybe never going to become the fantasy asset that we're talking about with all these needs all the time, but that's another conversation for a different pod, I think, at that point. So those are favorite landing spots. You know, obviously ideal spots for fantasy as well. And DC, you think we're talking early 4th, maybe late 3rd? Is that really where you have him projected?
I think 3rd with given, I mean, it's a little bit narrative, but yeah, given Tennessee, the connections there with Cam Ward at the top of the 4th round is kind of where I see his range.
Nice. And to end this up, I don't love doing this, and a lot of people just defer and say I don't like doing this, but is there any NFL guy that you see him as a comp? Do you see anybody that you can say, okay, his tape reminds me of so-and-so in the NFL?
Well, comps are my favorite thing, so I'm certainly happy.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that about you, Jeff. Like I asked people about this. I asked Kluge this last week, and he pooped his pants. He was just like, I don't do this. I hate doing this. I can't do this. So most
of the comps in the Football Guys Rookie Guide is me. So
baby. Okay. I like this.
So I've got who you got Shepard as his comp.
I love that. That's awesome, man. People, I guess, I don't know what, I love everybody listening right now, but I don't know how old you guys are and how deep you are into football in general. You know, like a lot of people might be newer and not familiar with who Sterling Shepard was as peak Sterling Shepard, you know, but like he was amazing. He was a high-end wide receiver too for a few years there. And that would be ideal for what Kyle Williams becomes, I think, you know, and people are going to roast me a little bit for this, but like, his release package reminds me of Ladd McConkey, and that's just, we're talking just release package. I think that the way that he gets off the line, his shiftiness, the way that he moves, I see a lot of that same footwork that I saw with Ladd. But that's like where I'm going to end it. I'm not going any deeper in that, but Jaden Reed does feel like a good comp to me. I think I see the developmental wide receiver, somebody that, you know, has improved his skill set a little bit and has shown out as far as a guy that, you know, once he's in an elevated situation with a very good quarterback, can really produce at a high level. I think
Sterling Shepard was in college in 2015. You guys, I mean, I guess 2015 was 10 years ago already.
I know, and it's
talking about how old people are. You make me feel really old.
I'm old too, but like I will talk about guys like, you know, like I put out references all the time on the pod, and people are like, who, you know, like they have no idea. Like it was, I can't remember who I mentioned, but we're talking about like 10 years ago. Like we're not even 10 years ago with these references, you know. I can't remember who I was talking about, but it was Victor Cruz. I talked about Victor Cruz, and that's another Giants wide receiver. But that was his peak was in 2015, 2016. I think 26. That was just around the same time. I think they were on the team at the same time, Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz. But I know that, yeah, it was the same thing. But nobody knew the Victor Cruz salsa dance, and I felt silly. The whole live chat was going crazy on me, and I was like, that wasn't that long ago, right?
So,
I think
Sterling
it's
Shepard
catching.
was Baker Mayfield's primary receiver. So at Oklahoma.
You'd be surprised, man. I think a lot of fantasy is ebbs and flows. Like you're either in it for 20 years or you just got started during COVID. I think a lot of people that play fantasy football now discovered it when they were locked in their houses and they had nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. So almost before 2020 is a hard reference point for a lot of people, which is, it is what it is. But
that's why they. Why I'm with football guys, the old school football guys love me. So
yeah, you got a nice crew over there, man, and you guys are all over the age of 30 for the most part. So you can always make references that people get. Is there anything else you want to add about Kyle Williams? Anything that we missed or that you think needs to be talked about with this guy?
No, I think we hammered it pretty well. I mean, I don't know. We've already spent 35 minutes on a guy that might not even go day 2, so we probably adequately covered it.
Yeah. So I'm who's running this account, man? Who's doing this over here?
It's probably Joey.
It's probably Joey, right? Joey's such a fun-loving dude, man.
Joey's great.
I was trying to get Joey on here a couple weeks ago, but he was at a wedding, and I said, "What's the excuse, man? You know, you don't bring your pod equipment to the wedding. You're not going to do that for me."
No, Jeff, I would not.
I know. I appreciate you, man. If you aren't following Jeff, you're silly, but go follow him at For Whom the Bell Tolls on X. Go buy up that rookie guide at footballguys.com.
Still free. It's still free right now. You can still grab it for version 2.0 is free. So you've got about 6 more days or so that you can get the free version 2. Version 3, when we're going to update all the landing spots, have fresh rankings, all those types of things. That's when it will drop behind the paywall.
Awesome, man. Anything else that you want to plug, Jeff? Tell the people. I don't know why I'm trying to plug you, or you can do it yourself. So,
man, I mean, I'm just at football guys. I'm always around football guys. I more your stuff, man. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I appreciate you kind of running this series and going through this. I mean, all the stuff that's coming out with at a meeting the other day with my friend Andrew Hutchins. Wait, I'm saying that right. His last name's
Hutchins. Hutch. Yeah.
That's what
I know who you're talking about.
That's a blank, but yeah, hooking me up with Fast Draft, and so I'm excited to check that out. I think that it's that's really exciting. That kind of offering something different there. When I was talking through with him, just kind of the way I talked about it, the big one that everybody knows. It's like if I'm going to go for a walk, I'll do that one. Whereas like if I'm waiting for my kids and I've got 5 to 10 minutes, that's a great option to be able to look at there.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Like I said, when we started Degens, we were, just in the Discord and stuff, and you were awesome, and you were so supportive, and I'll never forget just like how genuine you were, just because, the space is very cutthroat, and it's hard to know who's real and who's not, but you're definitely a real one, Jeff, and I appreciate you for that.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I'm just me. I don't know. I don't have anything else.
I mean, it's genuine. So if you know Jeff, and people are confused by you on X, but Jeff is pretty genuine, just a all around good dude. So, like I said, go follow this guy on X and definitely support him at Football Guys, and just whatever rookie guide it. So next week, not even next week, I'm sorry, we're going Friday. So Friday we're doing Shedeur Sanders. I appreciate everybody that joined us today, and we'll catch you guys on Friday.
Right back to business as usual. Straight out of what's under my cuticle. I blocked it, they picked out my coffin. Ain't it funny how